Imagine a world with no surface, just endless clouds, swirling storms, and crushing pressure. A world where life thrives not on land or sea, but in the thick, turbulent atmosphere of a gas giant. Welcome to Aerithys, a planet where survival means riding gravitational currents and feasting on the energy of storms. This is the story of the Luminari, creatures that dance on the edge of oblivion, harnessing the very forces of nature to survive in a world that is both nightmare and dream. Deep within the churning atmosphere of Aerithys, where the pressure could crush steel and the winds could flay flesh from bone, life found a way. Millions of years ago, the first simple organisms took form, drifting on the currents, feeding on the rich chemical brew that swirled around them. These were the floaters, gelatinous blobs that absorb nutrients directly from the air. They were the beginning of everything, the pioneers of a world where the very concept of solid ground was alien. As eons passed, the floaters evolved, adapting to the ever-changing conditions of their environment. Some developed the ability to emit light, luring prey or mates in the endless twilight of the gas giant. These became the glow drifters, ethereal beings that illuminated the skies like living stars, their bodies pulsing with a soft, otherworldly glow. They were the first to bring light to the dark, turbulent world of Aerithys, and their beauty was a beacon of hope in the endless storm. Others grew larger, more complex, developing primitive senses to detect changes in pressure and chemical gradients. These were the storm riders, creatures that could sense the massive electrical storms that raged through the atmosphere and use them to their advantage. They were the first to harness the power of the storms. Their bodies adapted to absorb and store the electrical energy that crackled through the air. With this newfound power, they could move with greater speed and agility, riding the winds and currents with a grace and precision that was unmatched. But it was the Luminari that truly mastered their world. Born from a lineage of storm riders, the Luminari were majestic, winged creatures with bodies that shimmered like polished metal. Their wings were not for flying in the traditional sense, but for riding the gravitational currents that flowed through Aerithys. By manipulating these currents, they could move with astonishing speed and precision, darting through the dense layers of the atmosphere with ease. They were the dancers of the currents, the riders of the storms, the lords of the endless skies. The life of a Luminari was one of constant struggle and adaptation. From the moment they hatched, they were thrust into a world where only the strongest survived. The young Luminari, or glints, had to learn quickly how to ride the currents and avoid the myriad predators that lurked in the depths of the atmosphere. Their first hunt was a rite of passage, a test of their ability to harness the energy of the storms that raged around them. They would dive deep into the heart of the storms, where the pressure was greatest and the winds most violent. And there they would find their prey. The storm beasts were massive leviathan-like creatures that fed on the raw energy of the storms. They were the apex predators of Aerithys, feared by all who dwelled in the atmosphere. But the Luminari were not without their own defenses. Using their mastery of the gravitational currents, they could outmaneuver the storm beasts, striking quickly and disappearing into the chaos of the storm. They were the hunters and the hunted, their lives a constant dance of survival in the endless skies. As the Luminari grew, so too did their abilities. They learned to communicate through complex patterns of light, using their bioluminescent bodies to create intricate displays that conveyed emotions and intentions. They formed tight-knit communities, working together to hunt and protect their young, and they developed a deep understanding of the cycles of their world, knowing when and where the storms would strike and how to use them to their advantage. They were the masters of their domain, their bodies and minds perfectly adapted to the harsh and unforgiving environment of Aerithys. But life on Aerithys was not just about survival, it was also about beauty and wonder. The Luminari were creatures of light, their bodies shimmering with 1,000 different hues as they danced through the skies. They could create breathtaking displays, their bioluminescence painting the atmosphere with vibrant colors and patterns. These displays were not just for communication, but also for art, a way for the Luminari to express their joy and wonder at the world around them. They were the artists of the skies, their bodies a canvas of light and color, their movements a symphony of grace and beauty. The mating season was a time of great celebration for the Luminari. As the storms grew more intense and the skies filled with light, they would gather in great numbers, their bodies pulsing with energy and excitement. The males would perform elaborate dances, their wings creating intricate patterns in the air as they vied for the attention of the females. The females, in turn, would choose their mates based on the strength and beauty of their displays, ensuring that only the best and brightest would pass on their genes. It was a time of joy and renewal, a celebration of life and love in the endless skies. Once a pair had bonded, they would embark on a journey to the upper layers of the atmosphere, where the pressure was lower and the light more intense. Here, they would build their nest, a delicate structure woven from the threads of the gravitational currents. The female would lay her eggs, and the male would stand guard, protecting them from predators and the harsh elements. It was a time of great responsibility and care, a testament to the deep bond between the mating pair and their commitment to the future of their species. The birth of a new generation was a time of great joy and hope. The glints would emerge from their eggs, their bodies small and fragile, but their spirits strong and determined. They would learn quickly, their parents teaching them the ways of the currents and the secrets of the storms, and as they grew, they would take their place in the great dance of life on Aerithys, their bodies shimmering with light as they rode the gravitational currents through the endless skies. They were the future, the next generation of Luminari, the dancers of the currents, the riders of the storms, the lords of the endless skies. But the life of a Luminari was not without its challenges. The atmosphere of Aerithys was a harsh and unforgiving place, where danger lurked around every corner. The storm beasts were not the only predators that the Luminari had to contend with. There were also the shadow stalkers, creatures that dwell in the darkest depths of the atmosphere, where the pressure was greatest and the light could not penetrate. These were creatures of nightmare, their bodies twisted and deformed by the crushing pressure, their minds driven mad by the endless darkness. They were the stuff of legends, the monsters that lurked in the shadows, the embodiment of the fears and nightmares of the Luminari. The shadow stalkers were cunning and ruthless, using the chaos of the storms to their advantage. They would strike without warning, their bodies blending seamlessly with the darkness as they hunted their prey. The Luminari had to be constantly vigilant, using their keen senses and their mastery of the currents to stay one step ahead of these deadly predators. They were the hunters and the hunted, their lives a constant dance of survival in the endless skies. But despite the ever-present danger, the Luminari thrived. They were the masters of their domain, their bodies and minds perfectly adapted to the harsh and unforgiving environment of Aerithys. And so, the story of the Luminari is one of triumph and wonder, a testament to the power of life to adapt and thrive in even the most hostile of environments. It is a story of survival and beauty, of struggle and triumph, of the endless dance of life on a world where there is no surface. No land, no sea, only the endless, churning atmosphere of a gas giant. It is the story of the Luminari, the dancers of the currents, the riders of the storms, the lords of the endless skies.
Signal from X42 lost. Archive preserved. Subscribe will activate the next transmission. A like confirms the life cycle. Your comment is the code for the next decryption.